And now I'm very happy to learn more about what your experience is, Professor Di Maria, from working with SMEs in the context of Industry 4.0 in Italy, if I'm not mistaken.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for inviting me to contribute to this debate. I've been working and making research on the link between ICT, information communication technologies, and SMEs for almost 20 years. So I think that this is still a kind of top question, top, area of investigation, and also for policy is more and more becoming a priority. I think you can see my slides, I can imagine. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so the idea for my presentation is to give you an overview of what is occurring in Italy, taking based on a research that being developed few months ago, and then the idea is to try to understand how especially SMEs in the Made in Italy sectors are adopting technologies related with ICT and Industry 4.0 technologies. And our question is to what extent these produce some advantages in terms of competitive behavior, but also what are the keywords that you also mentioned, so the challenges and the opportunities. So I'm going to start from two pictures. So one, probably you have seen this also in other presentations. The idea is that the fourth industrial revolution is very complex, in the sense there's a lot of potentialities, lot of technologies that companies can use to transform their manufacturing processes. They did talk about smart factories, the idea that through, for instance, IoT, you can connect clients and suppliers. There's a link, as we have heard before, with the DigiConnect, also intervention about the implication from a sustainability point of view. So there's a rich set of opportunities, and also the public funds can support companies to adopt these technologies. But I want to show you also another picture, which refers to a kind of different way that maybe SMEs may think in terms of this technology. And this is much in line with what also the intervention by Mrs. Lamperger was saying about the idea of the fact that, especially for SMEs, the technologies can be seen as tools to simplify their business. So the idea that, especially in industry, the one that we observe from fashion to mechanics or home products, the idea is that more and more firms are interested in producing customized product. And so from this point of view, technologies can be seen as a way to let manufacturing and digital manufacturing to become more able to cope with the market demand. So a way to transform the business, not necessarily in a very complex way. So having this in mind, just 3 years ago, we started to study this process with this digital manufacturing lab. I don't want to spend too much time on introducing the context. What I'm going to show you is a large survey that we carried out in 2017, and this was the first round of analysis that was followed by second and third round of interviews in the following years. But I want to start with this one because it pointed out some of the opportunities, but also challenges that SMEs can face in the process of digitalization. So our idea was to try to ask to companies, to SMEs especially, even very small, so from €1 million up in terms of turnover, in a very large set of industries in the northern part of Italy, which is known as the most, let's say, characterized by its high number of manufacturing companies. And what we come up, we try to understand which is the level of adoption in terms of a wide range of technologies that are included in the Industry 4.0 umbrella. So from robotics, advanced robotics to IoT, 3D printing, and the like, we will see later. And we were just asking which kind of technologies they were adopting, also taking into account the public funds that were available also at that time. In 2017 was the year where the Piano Industria 4.0, so Industry 4.0 plan carried out by the Italian government was implemented. And as you can see, just a very small piece of the cake is adopting technology. So 1 out of 5 of the SMEs that we interview adopt these technologies. This could be seen as a negative way or a positive, taking into account what extent we want to highlight, and this is something that I'm going to explain. I don't want to spend too much time on that, just to say that are very, very small in terms of turnover, in terms of employees, but they're very active internationally in terms of markets. So I want to link this with what the Ministry of Economics from Romania were taking into consideration. So the link between digitalization and internationalization. But what is interesting is that much of SMEs, and this is not just an Italian story, are also linked to focus on bespoke or customized products. So they need to be very flexible and need to redesign very rapidly their production activity in order to cope with the market request. What we come out with that research is that not only large firms, but also micro companies invested. And so the idea is that Industry 4.0 and the digital transformation is not something that starts only from large companies, but is involved also small one. And the most the frequent technologies were adopted relate with manufacturing, but also with data management, so big data and cloud. And I will mention a company later on that. Just to move, what is interesting is that is not the fact that large companies or mid and large companies adopt a large set of technologies while small were more focused. What was the picture that we are observing in Italy is that even small firms may decide to adopt different set of technologies. And so what is really the interesting thing to look at is only about technology. What we saw, and this is a result that I'm going to recover later, that there's 1 or 2 technologies that are adopted. So when we count, let's say, the number of technology, we see that it could be seems that there are very few. But this is not true. I'm going to explain later why. There's a set of different layers of adoption. Of course, the technologies that were available in the market before were adopted by companies before, of course, then the most advanced one. But we see also an incremental set of innovation from the digitalization point of view. I want to stress the fact that we ask also to firms that were non-adopting these technologies, what was the reason? And this is, we think, also discussing with the decision maker, industry association, and policy maker. This result was one of the interesting part of our analysis. When we asked to companies, especially SMEs in the Made in Italy industry, why they are not adopting, it's not about funds. It's not about the lack of technological infrastructure, but is about strategy. This is very important when you have to consider the policies, because if policies are focused, and this is something that I want to anticipate also for the debate, is just providing funds, but we have not to take into account the context in which those funds have to be used. There could be some not negative, but implication in terms to what extent companies are really able to get the real chance in using those funds. Why? Because when we ask our to non-adopting SMEs what is happening, they say this is not our business. We don't understand basically what are those technologies can offer for us. This is not. This is a more cultural mindset, but this is also linked to how those technologies are presented, because especially for very small one, and I really like the way Mr. Langenberg was presenting from a craftsmanship point of view. If you are very small, sometimes the fact that the framework of Industry 4 is considered as a very complex. It seems that is too far from what is the reality of the business of small companies, and this could be create a challenge for a real and effective adoption. The other motivation is that the company that we interview say, oh, we are very small, or we are artisan, we work differently. So from this point of view, there's also a different perception of what are real the potentialities that those technologies can offer to firms that have a specific business model of their work. They behave differently to, let's say, mass market or standardized high volume production processes. In fact, when we ask where in which part of the value chain are you using which technologies, we observe that there are some technologies that are specific for the innovation part, and this is more linked, for instance, to 3D printing, which has been considered a technologies that can be used also for manufacturing. From our side, we see that is not at the moment. Robotics and automation, of course, for operation, but in terms of big data and data management, this is more cross-functional applied. And this is also one of the areas where especially SMEs are investing the most, also taking into account the cloud opportunities. There's a special link, and this is another challenge / opportunities that I want to stress. There's a link between investment in the Industry 4.0 technologies and previously, say, or more well-known ICT technologies. So we try to split web marketing technologies and ICT, or tools for operation and value chain management, and we see that this is the picture that many companies, even if they're very small, they invest, for instance, in ERP or CRM or other technologies that connect the firm within its value chain. But it's also interesting to see that, I mean, this is the distribution in terms of statistics, but we also make more advanced, let's say, correlation. And the idea is that whenever the firm have invested in the past in digital technologies, for instance, ERP, there's a clear connection with future investment in Industry 4.0 technologies. So this could be an opportunity, this could be a barrier, because whenever the firm has the experience on how to adopt or implement digital technologies in the business process, these more, let's say, advanced technologies which are linked, for instance, to big data or robotics, may be seen too far from the reality or the experience of the firm, and so they will not be adopted, especially for small-sized companies. Another interesting thing that I want to highlight from our analysis is that those technologies, the technologies that are connected to the Industry 4.0, to the fourth industrial revolution, let's say, set of technological alternatives, are not approached by companies as they would be off the shelf. So they don't just use, for instance, the funds, or they buy technology, robotics, or develop, I don't know, an IoT system as a plug and play mechanism. So they don't just buy and use it immediately. They think, or they have to think, in terms of Industry 4.0 projects. So a much more complex, but also advanced way of considering technologies, linking technologies to an idea of customization in terms of hardware, for instance, or software, but also in integration with the ICT investment that I was mentioning before. So from this point of view, there's an implication also in terms of motivation and results. Who are the partners? And this is another input for policy analysis, and also for, I hope also for your project. The main partner is perceived still, at least in Italy, the the machinery or plant suppliers and Industry 4.0 technology suppliers. But more in general, SMEs thinks about the traditional partners as the one that can rely on for Industry 4.0 implementation. So consultants are also relevant, but more, let's say, public or research related players such as, you know, university or research center or technology transfer or even industry association are not considered as relevant as traditional, let's say, partners in this process of adoption. Reasons and results. This is something that maybe is peculiar of the Italian context compared, I don't know, for instance, to Germany, is that there's a strong attention on market-driven motivation. So the idea, especially for SMEs, is not necessarily the one of gaining in terms of efficiency, even if it's very relevant. But since companies, especially SMEs, they base their attention and their competitiveness on the fact that they are able to reply to customers that ask for customization, for instance, they need to use this technology specifically as a way to cope with this request, so to improve better customer service. And this is also connected with you know, their business model. This is also related with the results. So from this point of view, the SMEs are strategically moving in terms of thinking of market, but they gain also in terms of efficiency. So from this point of view, SMEs can obtain something that in the context of large enterprises is seen something which is taken for granted. So I invest in technologies in order to reduce cost, to be more efficient. This was not in the mind of entrepreneur at the beginning, but then at the end they realized that this is something which is really relevant. Is not something which is instead linked to, for instance, international reorganization of production or the like. What are the difficulties? And this is what emerged in Italy, that has been confirmed also by the following survey that we carried out, is that one broad area of difficulties and also challenge is related with competencies, an area that has been stressed so far also in previous presentations. The second one is related with infrastructure, so broadband. So from this point of view, you know, the policy that the European Union is supporting is really going the right direction in order to let SMEs to be more connected, in order to exchange and leverage on connectivity as a way to get in touch with the customers and suppliers. The third dimension referred to more the organizational way of managing the digital transformation, because as soon as the technologies are not simply technologies that are buy and use immediately, but you have to develop a project on that, then you need to have partnership, but also you have to take time, so time of implementation, and also the idea that these technologies have to be consistent or integrated what is occurring within the firm, has to be taken into account. Just a couple of results in terms of what is the relationship between the opportunity to grow for SMEs and digitalization. And what we observe, at least in Italy, for the companies that we interview, is that there's not an idea of substituting technologies, for instance, automation towards employment, but the firms simply become more productive. Or in some sense, because the technologies, they grow, they expand their market, and so they need to invest and hire more. So this is a positive consequence. And this is also linked, and I'm going to the conclusive part of my presentation, on the performance. So we try to create an analysis. I'm just simplifying what also from, you know, more advanced statistical analysis we carried out, create a link between to what extent investing in Industry 4.0 technologies have an impact on performance. And what we observe is that both in terms of profitability, so EBITDA on sale, and in terms of sales growth, there is a clear difference between adopters and non-adopters. adopters. What I want to highlight, though, is that it's not necessarily only the fact they invest, but also that they invest taking into account differences across industries. Because one of the result was that different industries have different rates of adoption, and the idea is more a kind of cherry-picking strategy. So the firm decide to buy, to invest, and to develop projects on technologies that fit with their strategy and with their products and industry. So there is not one size fits all, let's say, strategy and also policy in one sense, but we have to take into account the variety of context, the variety of needs and products and strategies that characterize the digital transformation of SMEs. This is something that I really want to point it out, that is not the quantity but the quality of technologies that is important, and is also linked to the strategy of the firm. It's not the size per se. So to sum up, what we observe is that the investment is limited, is growing, but is limited, and what is really different is that is not, as I mentioned, we make interviews during the Industry 4.0 plan where the funds were available. So the firms decided to invest, but there's a long history of investment in terms of digital technologies. And there is an industry variety that has to be taken into account. And also that adopters are more innovative in general and rely on past digital experience. So in some sense, you need to work also on the past digital revolution. For instance, has been mentioned e-commerce, just to name one of them. The second issue is related with the fact that the technologies are different, the process have to be taken into account or different. So the question is not just to buy technologies and to support the with funds technology acquisition, but the real idea is to try to let the firms be aware about what are the potentialities. So there is a business strategies that to be taken into account, also working, for instance, with peer-to-peer connection. So from this point of view, we carried out an additional further analysis also last year, and we are currently managing another round of analysis this year with the Union Camere del Veneto and the Chamber of Commerce, in specifically what they are calling in Italy Punti Impresa Digitale. So digital business point, with the idea to understand also from a qualitative point of view what are the challenges but also the barriers in supporting digitalization. And this is specifically just to link to your project to mature companies. They are not startups. They are companies that have been founded many years ago. They have been in business for decades, also in traditional industry, and the idea to what extent they're able or not to become digital. And what we observe is that there are, let's say, three main groups of companies. So there's the first group of companies that are very innovative. They are interested in investing and perceive this strategic role of digital technologies. And from this point of view, those firms are really able to invest without any support. This is, let's say, very positive in the sense there are a group of companies that are very innovative that can, so push the others to follow them. There are other companies that are aware of the opportunities, and specifically funds like the one that we heard from the Slovenia government, or also from the Italian one, are very relevant, or also at the regional level, or the support by Chamber of Commerce. So from that point of view, the public support is really important because they can understand better, they can reduce the risk, they can be able to follow a path also of experimentation step by step with a trial and error process, because this is also have to be stressed that advantages or benefits are not necessarily obtained only and all in just one very short period. And there are another group of companies that is probably the most challenging one from a policy making point of view, which are companies that are really resistant because they really don't understand what are the technology, but it's not the digital, let's say, not a technological issue. How artificial intelligence work is how those technologies can be applied into business content, which in some content are very small, very simple. They need to be to have very simple technologies, but that could be the right one. So to conclude, just mention two case studies that benefit from this also institutional support. They're very small, but they also change the way they are doing business as a mature companies because exploiting the technologies. One is based in Vicenza, is Marmi Serafini, is a company working and producing marble products. So they move from producing products in marble for let's say for just building to home decor, to you know, more design-based application. And so they really decided also in exploiting the public support to invest in some technologies like 3D printing or the machine that I put here the pictures. So some advanced technologies that are able to translate the 3D version of the product into product that at the same time is really fits with what the customer wants, so in a customized way, but without also in an efficient way. And because of they were able to manage digitally the product, they were able also to connect internationally to a wide network of design studios that were able to support not only the internationalization of the fair, but also the opportunity to move up in the value of the product as a design-based product. And even if it's very small, I mean, 1 million euro, 15 employees, they're very able to upgrade in the sense to exploit those technologies to cope with the request. The second one, and be very brief, is Franco is Cisco system. They were starting producing, metal products, and they are very advanced in terms of technologies. They are able to create very customized products, especially in the automotive industry. They're able to create vans that are really equipped in order to support specialists that for instance electrician or other professional that go around with their truck, and the building inside the truck, all the feature, all the characteristics are designed and customized by this technology, this company. And what is interesting is that they leverage on different layer of technologies, investing in ERP, investing in cloud, then in a totally digital production. They invest in advanced laser cutting and other technologies, and it's all managed in cloud. So through these screens like the one that that you can see here, there all the manufacturing is digitalized. This is very small company, just 10 million euro, but they really think that for leverages on technology, we're able to become more competitive, even if the production, is in a high-cost country like Italy. So I think I can stop here. Thank you for your attention, and I will be more than welcome to reply to your questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Di Maria. Impressive study. I would actually like to take a look at your results in more detail if you're willing to share your survey with us, and I think it will be very valuable also for our policy dialogue that we actually want to organize in the future, because exactly these kinds of results, evidence-based, is what is needed to actually develop the right policy support for digitalization at the level of mature SMEs. So this is really very fruitful and helpful what you presented here.